Hello everybody, welcome to my study. In these extraordinary times, I thought it might be a good idea to do some writing classes from my study. You can see that I have the whole world in here with me, with all the books around me, and I'm hoping I can reach out to you out there, wherever you might be at the moment. So please do leave any comments or start up any conversations with me, and I will endeavour to get back to you as much as I can. So first of all, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joss Sterling, but I also publish under the names Julia Golding and Yves Edwards. And I thought I would do the first of these videos, which is called Write This Way, about where that sort of very basic question that you get as an author, which is, how do you start your novel? So maybe you're sitting there thinking you'd like to have a go at some creative writing. It's an excellent time to try that. So I thought I'd let you see where I started. Now, my very first book that was published way back in 2006 is a book called The Diamond of Drury Lane. I've got a copy here with me. So in answer to the question, where do you get your ideas from? In this book, the idea came from a place. This is about Drury Lane Theatre in London in 1790. And I was fascinated by the idea of living in such an exciting location. So I set my character in that building. That was where she was living. What you might not know, though, if you've read the book, is that I didn't start with a children's novel. I actually started this book thinking it was going to be a murder mystery with an adult detective. And I even wrote the beginnings of a draft with that as my sort of idea. But I found that it just didn't work, that somehow an adult wasn't the right vehicle for that story. So I changed my mind and I told it again from the point of view of a young girl of about, I chose a sort of young teen as the person to tell my story. Anyway, so that's where that came from. So sometimes you might want to start your book with a place. Also, I mentioned that I write under various names. So here's another one, which is Finding Sky, which was the first book I wrote as Joss Sterling. Now, can I get that so you can see it? Hopefully. There we go. Lovely cover. And the way that I decided to write this was I was attracted to a character of a very damaged girl who has a secret power. This is a young adult novel, whereas The Diamond of Drury Lane is a children's novel. And so maybe you want to start by thinking up a story around a character who attracts you, work out what that is, and let the character tell the story for you. So that's another very good way. And then my final pen name is Yves Edwards, and I originally started writing historical novels as Yves Edwards. Here's the American edition of the first one of those. And actually, you might be surprised, it wasn't the history that got me to write this particular one. What it was a social problem. So in this book, Ellie's father has what basically we would call now a gambling addiction. And I asked myself the question, how would a gambling addiction make itself felt in a historical setting? So I decided to explore that, and I knew already that during the Tudor period they had these people called alchemists who thought they could create gold out of base metal. It's a bit of a dream, isn't it? If you know Harry Potter, it's the kind of Nicholas Flamel world of chemistry. Anyway, so her father is trying to do this impossible task, and he keeps throwing more and more resources at it, ruining himself and others, and that means disaster for the family. So it could be that you might start with a social problem that you're interested in. And then finally, another place that you might get is just a story that somebody tells you that you find interesting. So my next Yves Edwards book is actually an adult novel called The Summer of Wishful Thinking. And this is about a woman who works as a registrar of births, deaths and marriages. So if you're coming from from abroad, in the UK, you can get married either in a church, in a religious ceremony, or you can go to someone who is licensed to conduct marriages, and that's what we call a registrar. Anyway, my sister did this for me, and she'd always come back and tell me these hilarious stories of what went on in Suffolk as people chose weird and wonderful ways of getting married. And I wanted to put this in a book. So in a way, I had the structure of 4 Weddings and a Funeral in my mind, you know, that great romantic comedy. And I thought, well, what about updating it and looking at it from a registrar's point of view? So that's where that one came from. So in a quick recap, the first thing you got to do when you're writing your novel is decide what is your spark. So I've mentioned place. That was the theatre for Diamond of Drury Lane. I've mentioned character. That is Skye in Finding Skye, who's this damaged girl with a secret power. I hope that's not too many plot spoilers. Or it might be a social problem, as in The Other Countess by my Yves Edwards pen name. Or it might be just something you've heard, a story you've heard that's caught your attention, which is what I've done in The Summer of Wishful Thinking. So this is where I thought we could have some fun. I thought I'd set you a little task so that you can decide where to get your idea from. And what I'm going to suggest you do is find the nearest magazine or the nearest newspaper you've got and choose 3 articles that you think have story potential or just catch your eye. Now, you might have to dig down deep to find, I'm not going to mention the name of the problem we're all sharing, but you know what, I suggest you dig down deeper than that and find some other stories. So I picked up from somewhere in the house just a recent copy of a British newspaper called The Guardian, and I have chosen 3 stories completely at random, and then this is the kind of thing I want you to do. So I just flicked through and found on page 18 a wonderfully suggestive article that says, "Mysterious Drake's Island opens to visitors after 30 years. Can you see that? Great photo. That's Francis Drake, the historical figure who was around at the time of Elizabeth I. So it's a wonderful story about this mysterious island. I mean, so much story potential there, which has been closed for a long time. So again, it's a bit like The Secret Garden, isn't it? It's got that feeling of a hidden place. So that might be a good location for a story, or something, not that particular island, but something like that. Flicking through, what else have I found? Well, I'm going to, what's this? I purposely didn't do anything medical. Here we go. My next post-it is, it's not about peacocking. Designers celebrate rise in jewellery for men. There we go. Can you see that? An article about men wearing jewellery. Now, as someone who likes history, I know there's been many times in history when men have worn jewellery. So you could, of course, think about this in historical context. Go back to St. Francis Drake. Or you might want to do something about a man now wearing jewellery, or a boy, or something which somebody who's pushing at the boundaries, shocking others by what they're choosing to wear. And then, what's my final one? I thought, well, I've got to go somewhere out of the news section, so I've gone for gardening. There we go, gardening. So this one is about flower power, the route map to a roadside revolution. There we go. This story is about how you can use grass verges to bring back wildlife, which of course is a great idea. And so I've got 3 really different stories there. I've got The Secret Island of Francis Drake, I've got men wearing jewellery, and I've got using like sort of urban spaces and roadside spaces to bring back wildlife. And then I would put those 3 things together and work out what is the story that emerges from those 3. What is the story I want to tell? Does it suggest a character? Does it suggest a place? Does it suggest a plot? So your homework in the first of my Write This Way, your homework is to go away, find yourself your magazine, your newspaper, or if you're stuck at home, you might want to do this online, find some kind of news site, maybe one that's not just talking about, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, and find 3 interesting things, and then your homework is to combine them and see if a story is emerging. If you want to give me a couple of lines about the story that you've thought up as a result and put it in the comments section whenever you come across this video, that'd be fun. But otherwise, why not get yourself a notebook? All writers, I'm convinced that all writers have a notebook. Here's my current one. You see that? Parrots, shiny. Make notes and put it in there. So that's the end of episode 1. And I'm going to do another episode which I will announce in advance on Facebook as usual, with more writing tips. I have to decide what lesson number 2 is going to be. It might be about character. That would follow. But anyway, I hope Write This Way lesson 1 is, where do you get your ideas from? So go on, off you go and get some ideas.